on the wall. All right, on a night like this, Santa's sleigh needs to be led by who? Rudolph. Let's sing to Rudolph. And on a snowy night like tonight, we can go outside and roll ourselves a snowman. Who might wake up and become alive? Frosty. All right, someone special is coming to town tonight. Who's coming to town? Santa Claus is coming to town.
Christmas is coming. The geese are getting fat. Please to put a penny in an old man's hat. If you haven't got a penny, a half penny will do. If you haven't got a half penny, God bless you.
Welcome to our church on this wintry Christmas Eve. As a child, I remember a night even snowier and bitter cold than this. The fingers of the icy winter wind pulling with all their force at our house, which clung tightly to its old stone foundation. The snap and crackle of the burning logs seemed to sing a reassuring song. Child, fear not the storm outside. You are safe in this warm circle of love. This night was, for me and my family, the most wonderful of nights, Christmas Eve. I looked out the window, watching the wind blowing the snow, whipping it downward in great white clouds over the edge of our roof, with its row of icicles which hung like long, jagged dragon teeth. I tried to extend the range of my vision beyond the blowing snow, but the night was so dark, it was far too black for me to see much past the small patch of light that peeked through the window onto the snow below. Maybe, I thought, I may see Santa Claus. Perhaps, just perhaps, he will come tonight on Christmas Eve. Because sometimes he did come late at night, and then on other years he may come very early on Christmas morning. Although it was long ago, I still recall how I had patiently counted the days until Christmas. Each morning, as soon as I was dressed, I would go to the calendar that hung on the kitchen wall to count the remaining days. Standing on one of the kitchen chairs, I would take my mother's shopping list pencil and with a broad stroke would cross off another day. Those days from Thanksgiving till Christmas passed so slowly. Finally, the days of waiting had come and gone. Tonight was Christmas Eve. I left my post on the front window and joined my little sister in front of the Christmas crib, which was next to the Christmas tree. The dime store stable, transformed by the glow of the Christmas tree lights, became strikingly beautiful. The cardboard palm trees and the plaster camel next to the wise men, illuminated by the tree's lights, took on the magical wonder of some far-off land. It was the perfect setting for watching old Christmas movies, or better yet, telling and hearing Christmas stories. Tonight, I hope to recreate that setting as we share stories about an infant's birth, baby's first Christmas, the thrill of a visitor on Christmas Eve, Christmas through the eyes of a youth, a first Christmas without children, and reminiscing about Christmas pageants past. Perhaps you will be able to picture yourself in these stories.
Every night a child is born is a holy night. And so the children come, and so they have been coming, always in the same way they come, born of the seed of man and women. No angels herald their beginnings. No prophets predict their future courses. No wise men see a star to point their way, to find a babe that may save humankind. Yet each night a child is born is a holy night. Fathers and mothers, sitting beside their children's cribs, feel glory in the wondrous sight of life beginning. They ask, when or how will this new life end? Or will it ever end? Each night a child is born is a holy night.
Hang up the baby's stocking. Be sure you don't forget. The dear little dimpled darling, she never saw Christmas yet. But I've told her all about it, and she opened her big blue eyes. I'm sure she understood it. She looked so funny and wise. Dear, what a tiny stocking. It doesn't take much to hold such little pink toes as babies, away from the frost and the cold. But then, for baby's Christmas, it will never do it all. Why, Santa wouldn't be looking for anything half so small. I know what I will do for the baby. I've thought of the very best plan. I'll borrow a stocking of Grandma's, the longest that ever I can. And you'll hang it by mine, dear mother, right here in the corner so, and leave a letter to Santa, fasten it in the toe. Right, this is the baby's stocking that hangs in the corner here. You'll never have seen her, Santa, for she only came this year. But she's just the blessed baby for now, and now before you go, just cram her stocking with goodies from the top clean down to the toe.
'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below. When what to my wandering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles, his courses they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my hand and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work and filled all the stockings and then turned with a jerk. And laying his finger aside of his nose, he giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team he gave a whistle, and away they flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." Please stand in body or spirit and join us in singing Joy to the World. The words will be projected.
I think there is nothing sadder in this world than to awake Christmas morning and not be a child. Do you remember the feel of cold on your bare feet as you rushed to the Christmas tree in the living room? Do you remember your eyes sparkling at the wonderment of discovery? Or ripping the ribbons off the shiny boxes with such abandon? What happened? When did the cold bare feet give way to a reasonable pair of to reason and a pair of sensible bedroom slippers? When did the sparkle and the wonderment give way to depression of a long day? When did a box with a shiny ribbon just mean another charge on the credit card? A child of Christmas doesn't have to be a toddler or a teen. A child of Christmas is anyone who believes that kings have birthdays. The Christmases you loved so well are gone. What happened? I wonder if they diminished the year you decided to have your Christmas cards printed and sent to 1,500 of your closest friends and dearest obligations. Did you get too busy to sign your own name? Maybe it was the year you discovered the traditional Christmas tree was a fire hazard and the needles had to be vacuumed every 3 hours. And then you traded its holiday aroma for a silver tree that revolved, changed colors, played Silent Night, and snowed on itself. Or the year it got to be too much trouble to sit around the table and put popcorn and cranberries on a string. Possibly you lost your childhood the year you solved your gift problems neatly and coldly with a checkbook. Think about it. It might have been the year you were too rushed to bake and resorted to off the shelf with no nonsense. I mean, who needs a bowl to clean or to lick? Most likely it was when you were asked what your kids were getting you for Christmas this year, and you said, I don't really know, either a chest cold, stomach flu, or walking diarrhea. I don't worry about them, they'll always come up with something, even if it's at the last minute. Or that time when you were at the drugstore having prescriptions filled. You saw a group of people singing. You didn't know what it was about, so you asked the pharmacist. He said, they're called carolers, and they go out and sing in front of homes, and sometimes they're invited inside for punch and cookies. But how do they get their medication, you asked. They're not sick, they don't need medication, he said. That was the time you remembered that not everyone got sick at Christmas. It made you curious about how other people spent the holiday. Your neighbor to the left had 4 children, and the one on the right had 2. Do you remember when one day you compared notes? I heard that Betty, the childless secretary in the next block, and her husband come down on Christmas morning in their robes and slippers and open their gifts before breakfast. Big deal, said Helen. We do that. But wait, you said, after that, they got dressed. Maybe the drugstore doesn't deliver on Christmas Day, said Charlene. No, I think they go to church and then go to someone's home for a big turkey dinner with stuffing, cranberries, sweet potatoes, and pecan pie. No one said anything for a minute. Then Helen said, I've got to go home and pull together some clear broth, Jell-O, and 7-Up. And I've got nose drops at 2 o'clock, antibiotics at 3, and Pepto at 3:30, said Charlene. There are a lot of theories as to why we get sick at Christmas. Some say it's the excitement. Others contend it's the exhaustion that makes you vulnerable. Is your theory that we are probably allergic to all that ho-ho-hoing and will break out with something every time we hear happiness? What has happened? As the holiday season looms large, do you find yourself a bit despondent over the fact that all year long you have shamelessly thrown out 8 perfectly good bleach bottles and 6 dozen styrofoam cups? Not to mention probably 87 baby food jars. It is only when you are in the final stages of the gift-giving season that you realize that the garbage man has taken away the materials from which great gifts are made. As a teen, I know too in what reverence these gifts are held by fortunate recipients. Not long ago, we received a box containing a styrofoam circle covered in Pepsi bottle caps and blue peach pits. Gosh, I exclaimed. Wow, added my brother. We observed the gift in respectful silence for several minutes. What is it? My brother finally asked. It's a Christmas wreath, of course, Mom answered. Aunt Barbara made it for us. Come on, she bought it. Nobody sells things like that, Mom countered. Besides, there's blood all over one of the peach pits. Do you like it? My brother asked. Son, no one else in the whole world has a wreath like this. Aunt Barbara put a lot of time and energy into this wreath. Not to mention blood, I added. But do you like it? He insisted. Like is perhaps the wrong word, Mom retorted. I respect this wreath. Gifts like this are unique products of human imagination. Gifts like this are living symbols of man's creative genius. Gifts like these are ugly, my brother interrupted, and then asked, "What did you send Aunt Barbara this year?" Mom admitted, "A lampshade I made from Hershey bar wrappers and pink macaroni shells." Children of Christmas are givers. That's what the day is for. They give thanks, love, gratitude, joy, and themselves to one another. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have children around a tree. It's rather like lighting a candle you've been saving, caroling when your feet are cold, building a fire in a clean grate, grinding tinsel into the rug, licking frosting off a beater, giving something you made yourself. It's laughter, being with people you like, and at some time falling to your knees and saying, "Thank you for coming to my birthday party." How sad indeed to wake on Christmas and not be a child. Time, self-pity, apathy, bitterness, and exhaustion can take the Christmas out of a child, but you cannot take the child out of Christmas.
The Spirit of Christmas by Nancy Tillman. I had just nodded off at 4:15 when the Spirit of Christmas stopped in through my door. With a great show of sparkles, he decked all my halls in tinsel and twinkles and bright shiny balls. I was really quite fond of the trimmings he'd brought, but there's just something missing this Christmas, I thought. Bells, he said, jingle bells, bells right away, bells on a one-horse galloping sleigh. A toy soldier band dressed in marching red sashes, candy cane tongues and marshmallow mustaches. Everyone caroling songs of goodwill, so merry that even the trees can't be still. I shook my head. You are really so kind, but that's just not exactly what I had in mind. He spoke to me then in a whisper of wings. There are gentle things that the season brings. Snow that lies silent, as quiet as a mouse, and roads that'll lead to your grandmother's house. 10 lords a-leaping as 7 swans swim. And of course, Santa Claus, I'm just getting to him. I lifted my chin and I stared at the ceiling. I still wasn't getting that warm Christmas feeling. That's when the Spirit of Christmas smiled. Remember, this all began with a child. Because it took nothing but love to begin it, It's really not Christmas if love isn't in it. Your tree may be large as the room will allow, with a big yellow star on the uppermost bough. But of one thing I'm certain, I am sure of one thing, it is love that makes the angels sing. And that's when I got it, that's when I knew the thing that was missing from Christmas was you. And so then, my darling, wherever you roam, may you always be safe, may you always come home. For as long as the world still spins and still hums, wherever you are, and no matter what comes, the best part of Christmas will always be you beneath my Christmas tree.
I'd like to have the kids come up and join me up here. You can sit right down here on the floor. So how many of you were in the pageant this year? A lot of you were in a pageant this year. So this is a story about a person who's remembering when he was doing the pageant. So I ran to the church, ran all the way with hay from the pet shop for our Christmas play. I had to wait for the hay, and rehearsal was over. I was late. Panting up the steps, I heard the high church clock strike 4. They'd all gone. I pushed the thick door and was suddenly in, quiet. All the town's din was gone. One yellow light shone beyond the long, high, shadowy place on a tablecloth with lace. That's the altar, our teacher had said. Now she saw me, smiled, and called. Got the hay, Tim? Good. Now come and spread it carefully about. She went out, and I was alone. And in that big tent of stone, it smelt of dust and flowers. I walked along a lane between seats to the manger. That wasn't the church's, that was ours. We'd bought hardboard and made a trough. 4 legs of batten sandpapered off. The trough felt cold, so I filled it with hay, warm hay, smelling of rabbits and summer. I put more on the floor and wondered if that first Christmas day was anything like our play, where Jesus is only a doll. Was there a light on Christmas Eve to show Mary and Joseph the way when they were seeking a place to stay in Bethlehem nearly 2,000 years ago? Was there snow? Every little inn in Bethlehem that night was packed tight with strangers, and no one in any street could find any room or even a bed to greet Mary, whose baby, Jesus, would be born soon. Was she afraid? Was there a frosty moon? Then someone at last was able to offer his stable. Was he kind? Did he call his wife to help? Had he a dog to snap and yelp, scenting danger because Joseph was a stranger? Did the manger in that stable smell as sweet as ours? Did Mary's donkey push a gray-brown face into that manger? I put mine in ours and sniffed up ghosts of flowers. I coughed, and the sound went round and round in the shadows. The church felt higher, full of darkness, cold and wide, miles from the street outside. Under the light, by the altar, was a black chair. I put it in the manger for Jean. She's Mary in our play. She's fair, and Joseph is Mark. He's dark. Were they really dark or fair? And was there a stool or chair? For Mary in that stable reeking of camels, was she frightened when the flickering lantern's light showed her very close a donkey's shining eyes, a cow's curled horn? Did someone hold her hand until Jesus was born? I put hay on the black seat, and more where Mary put her feet, and some on the floor where she might lie. Did the real Mary cry? I stood back then to see the whole scene where our play would be. I act the part of a shepherd, a young one, old Ezra's son. And when the angels sing about God's Son being born to Mary, I hear them first, and I call to the others, listen all, hear the night sky burst with joy, because this boy, God's Son, is born today. I like saying that. I like our play. But I don't like the doll meant to be Jesus. Pink and wrapped in a white sheet, tight and neat, still and flat. Jesus wasn't like that, was he? He was lively, soft, red, and wrinkled, very small, with tiny toenails. Did he kick and brawl till Mary wrapped him in her shawl? Did she hear the shepherds whispering outside, cold feet wrapped in hide, crouching on frozen mud? I looked into the long dark of the church and saw those shepherds. Well, I thought I did. Saw them lurch against each other with tiredness. There were six. There were six in our play. A tall one, black-bearded, and his brother, an old man and his son, a round-faced one, and another, a boy like someone I'd met. The frost had melted on his coat, his hair was wet, he shook his head, looked up, and suddenly I stood stone still. That boy I'd seen was me. Or might have been. I saw him smile and run and kneel at Mary's feet on the hay that I'd put by her seat. Please, lady, show us the king. The angels sent us here, angels, lady. We've come, hurrying. Old Sam here's bust himself trying to be the first to greet your son. Please, lady, I ain't lying. I don't know much, but I heard that singing. We all heard it, didn't we? Dong dinging it was, all clap banging round the stars like bells and pipes and drums and bird calls and all music. It made old Sam here dance. It did, didn't it, Sam? Show us the king, ma'am. We never had much to bring, but we brought what we could, and that's all good, lady. Show us the king, God's son, the angel said. Though I don't see how that can be, you being ordinary, though your face is sweet. Show us the king, lady. I saw and heard from where I stood, saw old Sam put out a hand, knobbly like wood, and touch the boy's arm. Quiet, Tim, be good. He ain't a cheeky boy, ma'am. He've brought you a lamb, his own, little black un. Be a fine sheep when that's grown, and here's a cheese, couple fleeces, and a goat's skin. Hope that's all right, us coming in. You see, the message was that you'd be here, waiting with your baby to bring cheer to us shepherds and all men. So we came immediately, Simeon, John, Ezra, Saul, and young Tim. Couldn't leave him. Said he had to see the king. So we let him come. What's the baby's name now, Tim? Jesus. Mary, is that right? Mary nodded. Then I saw old Sam pick up the baby on his arm as he might a new lamb. I'll do him no harm, lady. Little marvel, ain't you? You're the one the angel sang about. Come and see the baby, Tim. Then Tim, who looked like me, touched the baby. I couldn't see Jesus' face. I wished I was I wish I was in the boy's place. I wish the baby in our play was real, a real baby Jesus, alive and warm to feel. Perhaps I'd understand what Son of God means if I touched him with my hand. The shadows swallowed the shepherds. My feet felt cold, haze not warm on a stone floor. I walked along that lane towards the door. The clock wheezed overhead, ready to chime. Still here, Tim? Do you know what the time is? You must be cold. You'd think they could have found something better than hay for a newborn king on a winter's day. From the door where we stood, we looked at the stranger under the light. Yes, Tim, you would. All right, thank you. We're going to take the offering now. Electric candles are being distributed by Caitlin and Cassidy right now. If you do not already have one, you might want to discreetly test your candle. And if after pushing the button on the bottom and it doesn't light, try turning the bottom cap just slightly. And if that still doesn't work, you can ask them to get another one. During the next reading, we will start lowering the lights, which will lead into Bonnie playing Silent Night. The words will be projected on the wall, but please remain seated so that everyone can see the words. And I will walk down the aisle and light your candles. Once your candle is lit, then you can light your neighbor's candle while we all sing together in candlelight. We will then keep the candles lit through to the end of the service. Yes. So we start with our candles off. Christmas Eve is a time for candlelight. It is a time when one desires nothing more than family and soft music. One who can say what passes through our hearts on Christmas Eve. Strange thoughts, undefinable emotions, and sudden tears. All this and more, unbidden, come without reason. And we burn our candles, for this is Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve is not just a time to be merry, but quietly glad. It is the proper time to wish upon a star. It is the time to watch children with excited, happy eyes troop off to bed to await the miracle of dawn. It is a time of wonder, of thankfulness that life is still being created anew out of darkness. It is a time of quiet awakening to beauty that still lives on through the strife of a war-torn world. And we burn our candles, for this is Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve is a time of heartbreak, when those who are not at their own fireside are most missed. Christmas Eve is a time of blessing when all the heartbroken world give thanks for the quiet beauty of rest. When one person is closest to one's companions and is not then the enemy to any person. And we burn our candles, for this is Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve is a time of memory, when one remembers past happiness and love and often sighs for the good that might have been. Peace on earth, and now comes the memory of the story of the first Christmas, so old and yet so new. We lose ourselves in legend and dream of storybook people. Tiny Tim and the other wise man live again in the memory of human hearts. And we burn our candles, for this is Christmas Eve. May the candles we light this holiday season remind us of the glowing love within the heart. May the carols we sing uplift our spirits and renew our hope and vision. May the special moments we spend with family and friends strengthen the bonds of caring between us this time and throughout the coming year. Cassidy and Mason are going to lead us in Wish You a Merry Christmas. Mason will sing through the first verse, and then the words will come up and everybody will join in.
Wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And honey to you and your kin. Good Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Now it's a very party. It's a figgy party. It's a figgy party. Yeah, right here. We bring at you and your kin. Your time to be Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We go until we get some. Won't go until we get some. We won't go until we get something. Bring it right here. We bring at you and your kin. You a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas to all of you. We have soup out in the hall. Any of you may join us for soup and have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. You can leave the candles in the basket in the back door.